Have a lot to say. Have a lot to say about this book. Hello everyone, welcome back to Bookshelf Blues. I am Danny. I read a lot of books, and I wanted to talk about today the book I just finished, which is Mistborn. My copy is really tattered. It took me a long time to read it. Yeah, it's like 700 pages, and I'm a really slow reader. I wanted to talk about Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and a lot of people recommend this book. Like everyone in the fantasy, like booktube community, really loves Brandon Sanderson, and I can kind of see why. After reading this, it's been like, I don't know, I'm super into the Cosmere, and I'm really excited to read his other books. I read Elantris, which is like the first book that he published. I think Mistborn was the second, Mistborn The Final Empire. It's kind of advertised as like a heist movie kind of thing set in a fantasy world with like a really cool magic system. Okay, Future Danny here. I forgot to like give a bit of the synopsis of the book. It's, like I said, it's a heist fantasy, like a heist book, Ocean's 11 type book set in a fantasy world. But there's also like slavery and all these other things. Like there's power structures. There's the Lord Ruler, which is the Dark Lord of the book, and what is my hair doing? The main characters are trying to defeat the Dark Lord, the Lord Ruler, end slavery in the world, and it's a lot more than the heist book like that it's advertised as. So I just wanted to give some context also about what the book actually is, because I forgot to mention. I just assumed everyone knew because Brandon Sanderson is so popular right now. But yeah, a lot of people, like if you ask them about this book, they will talk about the magic system because it is so cool. It's based on like elements, metals, and each metal has a different property. The main magic system is allomancy, and it's just utilizing metals found in the earth and using them to do a whole bunch of things. Like you can hot cloak yourself from other magic users so no one can tell you're using magic. You can fly around and do all these things. And different people have different abilities based on the metal that they can use. It's so cool. So the two point of view characters we follow are Vin and Kelsier. Vin being like a 15-year-old girl and Kelsier being, I don't know, 40, 30, I don't know his age. But they're both really cool. And they're both Mistborn. They both have the ability to use all of the metals and utilize the magic system in a really cool way. I just want to talk about the pros and cons and then get into like a little spoilers about the book at the end. So I will say spoilers before I start talking about the spoilers for the end of the book. Some of the pros. So Vin is a really cool point of view character. She's really relatable, and she's kind of like the everyman / every woman of the book. A lot of books have that thing where you can just identify with the character because they don't really have definable personality traits, and not in a bad way. She's just, there to be a stand-in for the reader. And it's really cool. Like she does have that drive to get better and to be overpowered and stuff like that. So yeah, and I wish I read Mistborn when I was like 15 because I would have identified with Vin a lot more. Still, she's really cool. And then the other point of view character we have is Kelsier. Love it. I love him so much. He reminds me of Kyler in, if you guys have ever read The Way of Shadows or read the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. He's got that same, like, I don't want to like him, but I just love the character. Like, he's there to be liked in the book, and I just fell in love with him. He is like a fully fledged Mistborn. He's kind of like a mentor to Vin. And through him, we learn about the magic system, what could be done with the different metals, and how Mistborn can do all these other cool things. And it's really cool. Brandon Sanderson has I think it's called Branson's Laws of Magic or something like that, where he talks about the difference between hard magic systems and soft magic systems. And allomancy in the book is a hard magic system where the rules need to be followed. There aren't any like mystical, oh, this just happened because it happened. It's like the characters have limitations. The powers that they have limitations based on the magic system. And it raises the stakes really well. So another great thing about the book is that it's really accessible. There's not overly flowery language or like flowery language or like I don't know, the writing style is just really simple to read. And if you're reading a 700-page book and it's all like purple prose, you're not gonna really enjoy too much of it. Like it's gonna get old a little fast. But yeah, the writing style is really, really easy to read, and the action scenes are amazing. Like they're so well written. The way Brandon Sanderson writes conveys action sequences really well. And because the writing style is so minimalist, it just comes across like, you're watching a movie. I hate to make that comparison, but that's what people say. Like when you're reading a book and you feel like you're watching something in your head, that is the ultimate like great thing to get from a book. So I do have, oh boy, I have some cons. Big thing for me was Spook as a character. I don't know if you guys know, but like, I don't know if Brandon Sanderson knows that Spook is like a derogatory term for a Black person. And maybe not people, it's not like other racial slurs where it's really well known. It's like the third definition of what a spook is. And to have that character in a book about slavery and a book about like slaves overpowering things, and then you have a character that's like a caricature of a Black person, it's really uncomfortable. His way of speaking is like all slang and all this other stuff. It's uncomfortable. I didn't like that character. I think also the understanding that Brandon Sanderson has about oppressed groups is a little shallow. It seems kind of like white savior-y a little bit, like, yeah, we're gonna band together and defeat the oppressors, but we're the white saviors, like Vin and Kelsier, and then all the ska. It's a little, again, it's a little uncomfortable, but any book about that type of subject is just gonna be, rub you the wrong way. There's a lot of ways to do it, and not every way is gonna be executed well. Also, where are all the women? There's like a serious lack of women in the book. And like we have Vin as a point of view character, and that's really cool. And you didn't, in the past like decade or two, been having more and more women characters in books, in fantasy books. But still, there's only Vin. She doesn't really talk to many women. It's just, I would have liked to see women on their heist like little group. It feels empty when there's not enough women to make the world feel real. Like he went through a lot of trouble of world building and making a great magic system and all these other things. But when you have maybe 3% of the population are women, it doesn't feel as real as it could, And it's not so much a heist book as it's advertised. I don't want to give anything away before the spoilery section, which I will get to, but it's not heist in the sense of like Ocean's 11, which is what I wanted, which is what it was advertised as. So if you're going into the book thinking that it's only going to be like, yeah, we're going to steal all these things and this heist in a fantasy book, it's not completely that. It's a little bit more than that, which is cool, but it was a bit disappointing. Like I wanted the Ocean's 11 in fantasy setting, and didn't really live up to that the way I wanted it to. There's a lot to be said about growing characters over a period of time. Vin kind of got overpowered pretty fast. Like she did have increments of gaining her powers, but a lot of the book was spent her at balls and her doing all these other things like the espionage and all that she was doing. And it just felt like overnight she became the Mistborn, like she's better than Kelsier, and it got to be like the chosen one type thing. And it put me off a little bit. But again, I still like her as a character. I still love Kelsier. And I think the depth that Brandon Sanderson put into these characters, they're characters that people can relate to. Okay, spoilers. Spoiler section. Leave now if you don't want spoilers. I'm going to give you like a second. Okay, cool. So he killed Kelsier. Like, why? Like, I was so upset. I put the book down for a week after reading that. Like, it was a full week I couldn't read the book because I was like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to read it. Like, this is the character that was getting me through this 700-page book, and now he's gone. I'm like, there's nothing else here. But I did finish it. I did want to get to the end. figure out how everything did. So I cared enough to finish it. But his other book, Elantris, which was the first book from Brandon Sanderson, I tried to read. I did not finish because I just couldn't get. I just wasn't attached to the characters at all. I did not care what was happening. I finished it, and even though I'm sad, like I'm actually heartbroken. I usually see character deaths coming. I'm usually the first person, like if I like a character, I'm like, well, they're gonna die. Like that's just gonna happen. But this time I did not see it coming. So overall, it's a really solid book. It's really cool. I think a lot of fantasy fans would enjoy it. And it's definitely one of those books that if you want to get someone into fantasy, like if you have a friend that loves to read or is just looking for something different and they like fiction, they'll definitely get into this book. It's the gateway book. It's the gateway book into like heavier fantasy and high fantasy. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to try to put out a video every week, depending on how fast I read. Like I'm doing like 2 books a week right now, book or 2. Like I said, I read slow. And when I read these 700-page books, it takes me a while to get a video up. But I can't wait to start The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson because everyone tells me, they're like, oh, if you like fantasy, this is the end all be all. There's a lot of themes that I've heard that are in The Way of Kings that I can't wait to read. And I even though I didn't like Elantris and Mistborn is just, it's okay. It's like a 7 and 8 out of 10 for me. I definitely want to read The Way of Kings, and I want to continue reading Brandon Sanderson because I think he's a good writer. He's not my favorite, but I think he's pretty good with what he does with the fantasy genre. And thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next week, hopefully.